Da Lord, Let me remind every one of ourselves here to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation or altruistic aspiration, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should all participate in this lumbering discourse on the state of the path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a couple of pages from this Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the state of the path enlightenment, volume number 2, in the English translation, page 185, to give you the blessing of lineage oral transmission, followed by explanation.
Chua Don Derne, Chua Don Yela Shebe, Kavi Beno. Tambale Nye de Tadon, Long Yan, Chi Shebe, Loja, Timin, Jama Shawa, Tami Visha, Namala Shawa, say, you know, the young children. Tiemi Tin Shaw Shisha, Melon, Lilong in La Shamba, Jiluda, Shiso, Lilo, Jerry, Junior, Yum Litan, Dewala, Dewambe, Shurala Shabbat. Niji Dewala Sivatan, Kola, Jong Shishi, Kola, Geshe Meva, Namade. Nhung le de ro nhung da ni la den bi se ba yi hui deng mi jo le ni wa ji wa ju xie so ka ji ga mo da wa ji je na ba ba che da ji xi de di jiao den ba de do de bu me da de ba la song qi yi le ba la song lu to ba ni de ni de ji wa xie wo de ni zhe dong来的上坡的，你告诉我，过年龙游的人吧，这边来老干呢，来老久，龙没久了，叫我带上呢，我这几部胸口这些人都小我不了，小我这个我，特别是年的这，特别是年的，现在是高他也不就把它。同没被记住了嘛？我当过把手机能也能的，同学不你不是，起码同没我等个他妈结尾，你是当那工作搞不下的，个人他以为同学个月小帮的。小本东西就那么应当故说了，就是这个写作记录吧，当年吧搞吧呢，的汽修小娃也提的汽修，我当小人些干呢，特别说了，做穷人，天生就没说给，特别是老过的了。当这位周明所讲的修那的小小得了送投家了记录报告我的，提到位他了记录报告我当坑的呢这边呢了是报告我当部呢投家上节节呢中大些把当用的大做不赢了。当然，用的那些猪把当将那些锅巴呀，那切糕那也当着呢，猪点着哇，多把看了完呢，熊把我是穷那呢，心机当你们些老毛熊样当不呢？第二，他们呢，他搞个说我子女兄弟们的把样都把送给。人的老板没送人，前面几位的掌柜说的讲上去说送呢，大年米结瓦店上了，浪到了就为了这来退约，那个怎么马达那接起来嘛？他讲的生的多，那个上手看了些，几老板的没下店的在提起些我也。的得着的心，的心写把年把送为电子，真不是真不当的心心不如抗拒我的上准备到长寿到个烂的面头。大日也明也没结巴，偏当那把我现在上学就马达那，大学是没多接触。像我上街的把是他上街的学不到门把上家娃的家，上街新写给他们这把面，因为大小这把些可能也了去多少些年上街吧当。曾叫我娘的上呢，熊八哥的工作真里上手什么问题的体检吧，这吧样的我这边是看到我不是做上街吧，他看到我做上街吧，他当看到我不是做上街的，他讲去的这我当他们店这准备的这。 Ngombazo Sanje, Ngombazo Sangja, Ngombazo Ba Sangja, Wanjuru, She Shawani, Tije Batadi, Yavajo Shada Le. Ngombazo Sangja, Manje, Da Ja Jang Jene, Lana Me, Da Jang Jene, Lavaya Zo Shangju. Ngombazo Ba Sangja, Wajo Simje, Tanje, Don Tomogi, Zunju, Don Sim Tamje, Lo, Mizunju, Dagja, Titara. 在路边在路边都写到样的，大爷把带我来讲，很说的大爷的，这些可把你我大讲，这边现在没边那个大的很重些，天来这娘儿们这样的你面慢在大老没边没容易，记不他了我熊把结完了，写着熊把结完这上也有的他也行。 Dribi jiso che jiso chibi lamji tse yonten go taye wa ni yodwa da chong go taye wa ka gobar likbur ko ni we tene rangting de te wa na shimba jo je sanje yonte taye wa te nyam len je tu so yonte ye cha chamo re la chang江地等普渡西为中央的南极可是和现在老的说呢，他在对现的选拔的没有，我讲的三大面积南极入住了，你把么你别马我了，托一人等让给老的嘛那边拉着啊些个这边联邦的。 Yamne la toba na lamji goju ra jigbe lu sangwa zamji lu sangwa zam re temba na tezong gena sunu sene le bo na wi shero ta di hyunzum de tin sa ro kezang 宗主的个要的了，他科学宗主才给他做这些个，是的，他科学宗主多大的，去牛的地里我说我看见，科学宗主在但我在听他给他现在下一条就，他们下一条就过下去，我的给讲是吧？现在下一的过的上边，电视个记得俺做个可是啥？记得小啊，他今天小啊这那边逻辑判断过呀，小啊这，那种大开心的做下一点来源呢？ ene ko drop to maro chezo ti drop to ta e tambol sem jache ko sa de wa chezo ta ko logic ngon sagwe na ko logic shagil to bal jong yo ma ti ngon san na ya ta je ma cha na jul ka ngen che maro wa o ti na xin xe ne ti tambo ya chagi xe de zan en be tenjo to ni ga chwa ma ta so ti de ga samba chi ki wala ya be lo mo mo gona be ta drop ko san ya tambo ko sin chi bo ye na इन ठीक हो लिया तो बच्चे ने ले लगे माजे ना इन्हें घूमने को काले खाओ मारवा सीधा वो दी कैसे मुझे रेस सीधा ये लिया हम बताऊं से ना शायद शायद वो कैसे मुझे sta थोड़ा दो से दिन हो सीधा खोजे तो से दी
Geshe read from the bottom page 185 to page 190. That was the blessing of Lamrim oral transmission. And now he started to give explanation. And so just to recapitulate a little bit what we did last week, we talked about what is called an armor-like, putting on the armor, like joyous perseverance or enthusiastic perseverance. And what that is in a nutshell is this, that in today's language, if we have a project, we have to plan it properly, right? How long it's going to take. We cannot shortcut the process, you know. And if a project is going to take 1 year, you cannot make a plan for a few months because maybe you are more likely to fail because of that expectation. So you plan accordingly. This project requires 1 year. But I'll do my best, and maybe you might finish it early. That's a great news. But if you don't finish it, you are not going to feel discouraged, like, oh my gosh, you know, what happened, you know? Because you said 1 year plan, right? And that's what we call adopting, for lack of a better word in English, a very broad perspective, right? And so what is really important here is to set up a strong motivation and proper plan for our practice, As practitioners, there are many things that we need to cultivate. For example, to have this deep understanding and appreciation of our fully endowed human life. This life is so precious. It's very rare. It's greatly meaningful. Now, it may take a very long time for us to be able to deeply, understand this and appreciate it. So be it, So to say, what's the rush here? Make a little bit, long-term perspective, but at the same time, make the best of our effort. And maybe it won't take too long for us to be able to deeply appreciate this precious human life, right? That's great. Once we do that, we maybe move to the next one. That life is very transient, isn't it? Everything's impermanent. And again, that might take, whatever time it takes for us to be able to really realize it, what impermanence means, not just kind of my first footnote, just kind of intellectual understanding or, doing the big mouth talk here, like, yeah, impermanence I know kind of thing. He didn't say that, but, throw that in my footnote closed. So we set for a strong motivation that here's a reasonable plan, time period, I put it in, and within this time, I will do my best. And maybe you might accomplish it, on time or before the time, which is just fine. So that's what we call putting on an armor-like. We develop this determination that I'm going to do it, no matter what, kind of thing.
Terasco Jigmar said that the Tabdi Bevasian, Judo country Dogsena, and the Zundrikia with Tabdo Carson, what that Carsa not here, Kaje, Zundri pay Zundri Mazam and Yemik, and Zundri Savna and the Karju Ganga Yungo, Zundri Mazan and Karsa, Karju Sava Yupasha, and Yimbathi Yam said, and Pemado Sugar, what did they gadget contact Zundri, you then and Zundri Mazam be lost and Mazam and Yemik Yabu Samures. So that the Zundri Zum Telayata, so that any Karsataka, Lamir Mahia Gangala, Zundri Zomia, Hegro, Hegrity, internally, Gizi Chola, any Zundri Zum Sunya, Yashala, some of the Koda Yados, so that Tari here, a Shawali, Jujuna, his Sungi is.
So now we're actually on page 186, right on the top, where the subheading reads, the method of developing joyous perseverance and or enthusiastic perseverance. So which means now we are really exploring how can we cultivate joyous effort or perseverance, if you will. And in a very generic sense, as we talked about this before, we should really explore and contemplate the benefits of cultivating joyous enthusiasm, right, perseverance. In what way it is to our advantage that if we cultivate joyous perseverance, that we will succeed in our practice and whatever our plan is, isn't it? And also explore and contemplate the problems or the demerits or the disadvantages of not cultivating this quality called joyous perseverance. That means that we will never ever develop any new quality, but however we might have developed teeny weeny little bit here, we might lose it, because that's the nature of things. When you don't make effort, it just disappears. So there are a lot of problems. So we really need to contemplate the benefits of cultivating this quality, joyous enthusiasm, perseverance, and why am I repeating the same word twice? Enthusiastic perseverance and the disadvantages of not doing that. Of course, there may be many ways to do this, and as Geshe explained, that in this context, Lama Tsongkhapa said, I'm going to follow the explanation of Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantidevas, right? He's engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds or the Bodhisattva char avatar, Junjuk in Tibetan, where he really gives easy to understand kind of explanation, and as a matter of fact, a comprehensive explanation. So Lama Tsongkhapa says, I'm going to follow his way here.
他这里写，这里写中日给帮嘛的，听见听见帮个错上吧些，听见了点的中日，写到做嘛当，这里绿的三连是种，连是种小为脆弱些，我在听是是吧？中日这个中日给中日怎么的，他不给。开始，这不学开始周个呢，大概开始听我说学周看这周个呢，俺这咱们看到的娘子领队上眼睛看这用过这些，对眼睛帮眼睛的得帮些，听见看这个歌说的啥吧些，开始啥听见错啥吧当时，听见了点的中州说浪吧当时，我这话他可错啥吧些的，这是我他，比如我们这只要可能些呢。不给现在多过几个嘛是个多，现在开始啥，从说没那开始啥，这什么嘞？里面烧旺着是，现在错嘛啥那那别个烧旺着就来天气是咋的么？啥个不能就跟那过老的到开始像是几个嘛是吧？现在错啥个现在你的从有错啥呀的，里边几把你那么多松树果什么一这个。这把就我现在找到嘛，也是我是吧？但我听见不用做啥吧，当时这些，听见来点的中州中吧，好浪吧，当时好浪吧，是的开始嘛的呗，他开始啥？听原来那中州好浪吧，是那这是个么？贴家是吧？原来没得说这满意吧？中州这么一项目的是嘛的，是个吧？好浪吧，是喏。这来绿洲，他中州终于全部现在那电影的几个人啊，现在他。in thinking the
So we're in the middle of page 186, volume number 2 in English translation of this wonderful text or the treatise called Lamrim Chemo, Stage of the Path Leading to Enlightenment. And the method of developing joyous perseverance is presented under 4 subpoints. Everything's very structured here, as you can see. The number 1 is we have to explore unfavorable conditions and obstacles for developing this quality, joyous perseverance, and eliminate them, right? That's number 1. And number 2, that we have to create and accumulate the favorable conditions, right? The positive conditions for developing joyous perseverance. Number 3, by following those 2 ways, eliminating unfavorable conditions and cultivating the favorable conditions, then we really take the full responsibility to cultivate a joyous perseverance. Yeah, responsibility is ours, nobody else, for that sake. We are not going to do a half-hearted thing here, like kind of I'm here, there, like no, not kind of. That's the result you're going to get. You just, you're into it, or you're not into it, right? That's what it is. And number 4, once we follow these steps, then we succeed in developing what we call the meditative stabilization or samadhi. That really helps us to make our body and mind very flexible and serviceable in the nature, right? And that's the outcome, even well. So as Geshe explained, that it doesn't matter what path or practice we follow. If we stick only to Buddhism, there are 3 vehicles, right? There is a second footnote, Sharvaka Yans or the hearer's vehicle. There is a Pratyeka Buddha Yan or solitary realizer's vehicle, and there is the Mahayan or the great vehicle. Whichever path practice we follow, every path requires joyous perseverance, right? There is no exception to the rule here, okay? And so in order to have it, we have to say, what are the unfavorable conditions that exist, obstacles that I must get rid of, right? If there are a lot of obstacles, first we have to deal with them. We have to get rid of them. Okay, so that's important for us. And the second one is not only that we deal with and eliminate the unfavorable conditions, we have to create or accumulate the favorable conditions. And here it really primarily means we have to engage in the 2 types of accumulation or collection, right? Accumulation of positive energy or merit, punya, tsok in Tibetan, and accumulation of the wisdom or the jnana, okay? So we have to have those two types of accumulation. In Tibetan, beautifully called tsok, right? Collection, accumulation. I know it doesn't come right in English eloquently, but that's all I can do. And so as Geshe explained, that we really have to remind ourselves that we need to accumulate merit and we need to sharpen our intelligence and wisdom. Okay? You just can't smart out the path to enlightenment. Like, I'm going to do analysis and investigation and analysis. That's what I love to do, right? And you never accumulate merit, you will never succeed in your practice or accomplish the goal because just you can't smart it out. You need also the backing of the merit, positive energy to be able to succeed. Yeah? So we need to do both. And the example Geshe given is that having this kind of a smartness or the intelligence or the wisdom, it's just like having the real seed, right, to grow. Well, we all know that the good seeds don't grow on their own. They need favorable conditions, right? If you put a dry seed in a dry soil, never water it, never provide other conditions, it's never going to grow. Doesn't matter however good your seed is. It stays dry. Okay? So it needs to be moistened by favorable conditions to germinate, right, and to sprout it out. So like that, our intelligence requires the support and the backing of the positive energy of the merit. Okay? So we need to do that, favorable conditions. So once we do that, and again we say, well, who's is really responsible for doing that? So we take the personal responsibility initiative, right? And our responsibility has to be not partial, right? And but the full responsibility. I'm going to do everything I can to cultivate it. This is how you succeed in, what you do. And once you succeed, you started to change from within. There is this meditative stabilization, right, emerging and growing up, and that makes your body and mind become, a very agile and young and daring, and well, he didn't say the daring part, but through that one, very serviceable, very functioning thing.
Lamdela Jobala in this, draw number Toya, Minju Patang. Dagi Tendawa, the color drove Nunyam, the shown the Minju, Stan Gagin is over there. Lamde Tonya de Juna, Lamdela Jubala in this, because I drove number Toya, in that Gomjan, top the Tosari Sons of Yoda Young, and the Tabzumaji, the Ninja. Takaji out that the one of the Calico corporation, yet of some Marison, Pashomni Dingaji in yours. Rival or New York Juba was that drove new Minologa Machone, Mutaba young Yemerge, then Toa Tonyel Chevis in a Chevy Carmen also. Did that. Today, then the cousin Roger, then Lam the drove new Carnuja Mutaba. And dog drove news of Marias and in the concert of the Nanzing Yin do me do Sikarawa, drove new money, Kaya Majota, Tamil to Jeva Yomarawa, Kaza Sum Shagarawa, Sena, and the concert Sum Shana Jomaris, Tanda Delia, and the Lam de Lava Hijak, Jibu Lam and Jubel, rebuilt on the share and that. They drove a lot of most of the detail Shagama, the Kabima, the Tanda dish of the Chevy cups for your mothers. Tanda dia Toa Tonya gets a share of dinner because I tell me of the dinner you
So I still in the middle of page 186, and so now we started to talk in more details about each of those subpoints. The first one is we said eliminating unfavorable conditions that prevent us from developing a joyous or joyful perseverance. And so here we really have two things to do. We have to identify, what are the unfavorable conditions, and then we have to say, how can I get rid of them, right? Those are two things. You want to know what they are, and then you say, how can I knock them out? Right? Maybe today's language is knock them out. So the first is The two unfavorable conditions are, as it is explained at the bottom of page 186, not entering even though you see that you can do the practice. In other words, that you know you can do meditation. You know you can study. You know you can do that, but then you don't do it. Right? That's an unfavorable condition. You know you are capable of doing things, but you just don't do it. Okay, that's one unfavorable condition. And the second one that's identified is, you belittle yourself. It's called underestimating your own ability. But I can't do it. That's too much for me. I'm not up to it. So all those excuses. 10,000 things we can say. Well, he didn't say the 10,000. But you know what we do. We're talking about ourselves here. So those 10,000 excuses we have, not doing it. So those are the two main unfavorable conditions. You are capable of doing something, practicing, cultivating the path, but you don't do it. Okay? Or we engage in this kind of self-discouragement. But no, I can't. No, I'm not ready. No, I'm not there. Whatever, as my student said. So that's the problem there. And so then somebody says, what? Those are not only the unfavorable conditions. There should be a third one. What about people who are not interested at all in doing it? And here Lama Tsongkhapa says, what? I know there are many other things too. We're just only talking about these two things, assuming that you have some interest in cultivating path. For those people, they have some interest. So the two unfavorable conditions is not, I'm not interested. Well, because you are interested in some way, right? So it's that you are capable of doing it, you don't do it. Okay? Or you engage in self-discouragement or underestimation. So those are the two main obstacles.
drop new jang mo drop ke ti jong de kan de yue san na ta dong long yue nyam yi nyam ne qi xi ji le xi be le le jian dang de men ji chao men ba ta me be chao na la sha be se gi no ba wo so de da drop new jang ne ko chue le mo drop de ko no dum de ne yo de drop new ne wo ri de xin da mo drop ka de se na ni ko da san yin na drop se ale da de na le ga ti xe ni ka le ka drop tu se ya xi xi le de ti ka ga yo le se ba 다 근데 매나 에네 비게 가서 샤와 멤버와 샤와 멤버스는 다 대샤고 그러면서 세대는 샤와를 신는 샤와 멤버셔 그러와 세치만 왠지 샤와도 잘 샤와 야가 샤오시고 어제도 샤와 멤버 세대 송원다 딱 거기 내가 다가 좀 망보여 가지고 뭐 된들 차니 인디 쇼크 되게 비게 남을 줘야 존리마 세기 논 깨머 주시네 코랑 비게 가서 쇼크도 텐 주고 그러와
So let's look at those two unfavorable conditions that you are capable of doing it. You meaning always understand yourself, right? I tell it to me here, right? I'm capable of practicing, but I don't do it. Why? If you can't do it, why are we not doing it? Right? Cultivating joyful perseverance in this case. Well, there could be a number of reasons. Two things are mentioned here. That we always feel there is time. So I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow. We procrastinate it, isn't it? Right? We play that game. You know what? Yeah, I know it's important. I'm capable of doing it, but I'll do it later. I'll do it tomorrow. Then there's another tomorrow. Then there's another tomorrow. It never ends, So we always think there's time, and I'll do it later, not now. Okay, so there's the reason why, even though we are capable of practicing, we don't do it. One. The another one is that as practitioners, spiritual practitioners, the most important and priority for us is spiritual development and achieving the goals we set for future lives, right? This life matters, but not as much as our spiritual goals. But then again, we get too much sucked into this life, the mundane affairs of this life. I have to run a business, I have to do that, I have to do that, I have to do that. So all the things in this life matters more than ultimately the practice. So we get sucked into them, and so all of these things pull us from our practice, pull away from us from, right? So we have no time to do practice. I know it's important. I know I'm capable of doing it, but I can't. I have to pay the bill. He didn't say that. I have to do all those things that we add up,
le ngem ba xian ba dang si le si de zang da qi yu le xie nian si de chao nian xie de ba ni de xie 다 지루 비닐로 시아지도와
No.
지루 다니 녀바스다 지루 세대 데다 신년 모델 세대지 같이 대서 주바래 다 가서 녀도를 줘바래 저 지루 지루 이게 가서 당이 녀바스 당이 녀바스는 데 두쇼도 지레다 거징에도 시도 말스 배다베는 상예를 타바타 아우다 타바타는 용서도 방가 방을 tap에 뭐도 상예도 파리스를 배 소사야도 사문을 땅비는 소소스 마시된 지는 중요하죠.
No.
어디야? 당이 예배로선다 쇼빌로서 직발해.
No. So we are on top of page 187, and there is a stanza quoted from Bodhisattva Mahasattva's engaging in Bodhisattva deeds, and which is the source material to support our contentions here. So we are capable of practicing. We are capable of doing a lot of things, but we don't do it. Why? Right? That's what we're talking about. And we said there are many reasons. Because we always think there is more time, so we always push it for the later time, and procrastination kicks in. Or, this life matters more than the practice, so we get too much sucked into this life, and so our life is sucked out, and there's no time to be joyful about the practice. You are just, So those are the issues. So which basically means the storyline is that we are very much dominated by the three types of laziness that we talked about before, isn't it? Okay. There is the laziness of procrastination. I'll do it later. Give me some more time. Okay. Pushing it away. So that rules us. And then the laziness of excusing ourselves, discouragement. I can't do it. You know what? Forget about Buddhahood. Oh my gosh, that's like 3 countless eons and this and that. But even like liberation from samsara, that requires me to be free from all delusions. Forget it. But that's a lot of things. I just can't, So we excuse ourselves. So it's a laziness of underestimation or excusing yourself. There is that. Actually, this is the worst kind. When we underestimate our ability that I can't do that, then we will never be able to succeed in anything. This is the worst kind of laziness. And then the third kind of laziness, I think I found the best way to translate it. The laziness of being a couched potato, remember? Don't make me do another. That kind of feels good, doing nothing and thinking about nothing. That. So that. See, so the 3 types of laziness rules our life, and then there is no joyful. Joyful is not there, And so we have to recognize those laziness and deal with them,
다시 예바와서 해서 르르 뇽레당 대화멤버로 샥바당 니 대화라 세바당 코알 조시메바 남데스 데로다 그 르르서 게아주다 뇽레서 나티와르다 뇽레서나 제가 흘러서 대해서 지자로 다 대화 멤버 차세나 지다 니마토야서 지때 알아서야서 지데 처음에 대화 차야 될 대화 멤버시고 와 다니 대화 세바 시대점다 베는 로종접 지시 조시고나 니 조도나 니 갑대 맞아시 알리 니 대신요 가서 어두지야들다 니 세바시로 와 당근에시는 니 조도나 니 무슨 탑이시네 될 탑동시고 저 탑동 맞아시 니가 언디 따서네 데려와 어디지 근데 코알 조시메 와서 코알 조시메는 거네 대한테 야 쇼동 말봐. 코알 조시에 대해서 코에베 능에도 삼타레 포용산이 딘데 남의 맛이나 이네 코알 그 종으로 맛이나 이네 그 존주점 거야 믹스 통고 말봐. 어쨌든 되게 순서.
So we are still on page 187. Again, Bodhisattva Shantideva tells us, why, we, are dominated by different types of laziness here. Okay? And as Geshe explained, the laziness is also intimately connected to our attachment to different things, isn't it? For example, when we have this laziness of being couch potato, it's just somehow we love to do nothing. I want to sit idly, Don't make me do anything. This looks good, But that attachment, right? Doing nothing is something pleasurable for us, right? And I just like that pleasure, so don't disturb here. That. And And then the laziness also arises because maybe we love to sleep. Not that we need to sleep, but not more than what we need, right? And so you're studying, and then you started to feel sleepy. You know what? Yeah, forget study. I'm going to take a nap. Maybe sometimes you do, but really the question we never do is like, what can I do to make myself fresh and so that I can study, right? That's not an option for us. Okay, close the book. I'm going to take a nap. Yeah, I'm going to snore here, right? That's the option we take, opt out here. There is that. Then the laziness is also because of our attachment to the mundane pleasures, isn't it? All the sensual pleasures are so attractive, right? We really never think seriously too much about what's wrong with being in a samsara. Isn't it? Samsara looks a beautiful, situation to be. A lot of, excitements here. And so if you think samsara is nice to be in, well, who would think about being free from samsara? That's not an option, right? Why would I try to be out of samsara? Because samsara is good, So we can keep going round and round in samsara. That looks good, pretty good to us. So as practitioners, right, we really set a high goals, right? We want to be free from samsara, which means we are willing to explore, investigate what's wrong with being in samsara, the suffering that we don't want exists, isn't it? If we can put an end to the suffering, we can be free forever. That seems to be a better option, right? We don't consider those things, right? We just kind of sucked into the sensual pleasures, snoring and, napping and being a couch potato. And so that's where we are,
Because 대세 저가서 남대에서 뇽리 대외로는다 니를 때문에 세바이 그동에 미절리 릴라죠 릴로 녀와죠 저해서 스디레 다다기 shum사죠 뇽리시 릴로시 네 대외로는다세 대화멤버로는와세 닐 때문에 세바스디 단다 닐 차네 그 닐 동네 마시시네 시야들와 어디시 Tene koya dungi mijole se lila nyawa kyaandro. Shedata khoa Geshe me na ene koro ya kibusongi lan loya tundu kigumara ko karisa se koya jongo ma tong rawa. Lan lo goya karisa na koya na pe dungi ma bosi jongo ma bosi tong ni ene tele cheya ga tonda le ya ene karisa chöl shuk se ati geja rawa. Shedata koya jongo ma tong na ko shuk goya rawa.
So basically, Geshe kind of once more explained the stanza quoted from Shantideva's engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds. I quote, laziness arises from craving based upon indolence, that's a couch potato laziness, enjoyment of pleasures, so being attached to frivolous things, and sleep, and from a lack of disenchantment with the suffering of cyclic existence, unquote. So basically, this really, in a nutshell, highlights the three types of laziness, right? Laziness of not wanting to do anything, so that's a good option to us. And the laziness of being too much sucked into the mundane affairs of things, yeah? And then, we never really think seriously about the suffering nature of samsara, And so that's really bad for the practitioners, isn't it? If we really never kind of seriously consider that being in samsara is problematic, why would anybody want to cultivate dharma? Why on the earth would you be interested in dharma? What would it offer you? Nothing, because that doesn't seem interesting to you, right? But when we think that samsara has all kinds of suffering that I don't want, and I have suffered enough, now I want to put an end to the suffering, and I want to get to the nirvana, then we have to develop this disenchantment with the samsara, right? Samsara has a lot of issues and problems, so we have to kind of look within ourselves and consider these matters.
here's kaji kangpa tabo namba chita chewa tema dewa dosa, ta kangpa tabo nyongye dewa ro nyingta nil tembe siwa isa ti yinga ina lilo kar kaya gyudab shiwa nyumu shiwa rwa. Kaji kisena ina kangpa tabo nyi nyumu kaya gyudab kar lilo kaya gyushe ina otina ma shiwa tako nyinga tengo rwa, otu kisena kasa mindripo kaya yusamari shida digiri shiwa, tako tota nyi shiwa rwa. Otire.
So here, in the Shantideva stanza, not only we reflect on the different types of laziness, but we're also in some way looking at what gives rise to those laziness, right? If you're too much attached to mundane things, and then that can cause laziness of different kind. Or if you love sleeping more than doing anything else, well, that can really give rise to laziness. So now we were in the middle of page 187. The second subpoint is applying methods to counteract or eliminate our laziness or unfavorable conditions. And so the three things mentioned, those of you who got the textbook in front of you, stopping the laziness of procrastination and so on. Yeah, so the first one is, as we said, we always think there is a time later, right? We procrastinate. I'll do it later, I'll do it tomorrow, and we never do it. So that kind of a laziness we have to deal with. So, and some of the ways to deal with that kind of laziness is three things are mentioned here. As practitioners, when we seriously think about the transient nature of our body, right? This body is impermanent like so many things. It has a limit, okay? It's not going to last forever. So which means if we want to do something, we really should feel the sense of urgency. I should do it now, right? I can't push on tomorrow, because this, this body can snap at some time, right? And so, but thinking about the impermanence of this physical body, that it will one day, like it or not, will, be dead body. So before that happens, I need to do my practice or do whatever we need to do. So it creates a sense of urgency, right? Helps us to cultivate joyful perseverance. Number two, that once we die, it's not the end of everything. We will be reborn again, right? They're all kind of situations. So if we are not prepared, we could easily be reborn in what we call unhappy states of existence, such as hungry ghost world or the hells, and where there's so much suffering. So if you think about the suffering in the bad migrations, that is not attractive, isn't it? I mean, I don't want to suffer that. And so that should help us to behave accordingly and cultivate the joyful perseverance in our practice so that we can prevent ourselves from falling into those states where we experience too much suffering. The number three is that we should really appreciate this precious human life that we have right now. This life, among the samsaric lives, is the best one could have. And it's very rare kind of a life. It's greatly meaningful if we use it properly. And so before we lose it, if we lose it, it's really hard to find it again in the future, especially if we are reborn in the bad migrations, then to be reborn as a human being is, okay, now you know where I'm going there. Okay, forget it. He didn't say that, but it's very difficult. So thinking about these matters will help us, will inspire us, and develop joyful perseverance in our path and practice.
我这咱这说那个基本生活搞学生都是他得着啊，因为千万没得外些，哎，那个在起码个研究东西些，因听说的laptop 搞，我这说的话，现在怎么的得着话，大个啥，这个看这时候是呢，个啥，有这边有的这个小没得，但这个下一没得说刚刚下过，但得了呀，因为个啥。 이나 양양 일 만디나 안고 징나지가 말아 디 용거 저와 다시 어디 가려서나 년저 동안 가서 신 내저께 도로 년저 컨제도 그래 내저께는 저기로 와서나 이제 건조 가르데서 왔다 간지 건조 줄배 레도 버시기는 년저께야 레다 내저께 레노 신의 숙시정도 버시나 년저께야 레도 숙치아가 그래서 내저께야 레 숙송을 쓰고라 되게 숙소인데 다 제가 신의 배지를 연락해야다. 거기 남녀서 말하나? 남도 마시는 연락해야 다 쇼도 거라. 티셰. 그래서 레지 코아지가도 녀아가도 거바가 그래서 통보카이 팀미도 세야지 말이야. 줄을 열어와. 걔도 가르쳐서 레지 코아지가다 세대도 가르 숙소이나 레 용문서도 강가 사상상의 흉 가르치는 뒷얘기를 나와라. 다 용문서도 직바되나 엔 소소 비히르도 셈을 가리고 온디 주고는 뒷얘기를 했어. 다 대화 가르쳐서 소소 남지 기와를 공부하면나 엔 히르도 단라베 다 유무 소리야 야레라 가르보다 대바도 엔 땡이도 대피질 일 용마르와. 시다들 냐도 그러와. 공부 강스 엔 토마메 바니 비게 유무 공조도 믿으면서 공자 어디시에서 나 배지를 연락해서 차오라. 그래서 요 고박강 문제가 다 뒤에 가면 숙제중을 찍봐 공부 찍봐 예로 찍봐 되잖아. 이제 됐어. 내가 가르쳐야나. 이제 뒤에 그래서 그러다. 제가 그 연락해야 되는 사이나 연락해야 사이 어디 따바 사좀 그 아니 이마서 그랬어. 다 건지 가다 있다 가서 수 용돈 조사하는 남지 수주 가데서는 ene gewada mego니 니마지 슉 거치도 거방도 딱에는 안티하고 걸어와 어디 제가 이게 그래서 제가 달라된 상부 톡 말이 가서 다다 대전이가 시대지가 될다 지고니가 빼도 되는 거사 ene 주디 빼시 온종가서 되게 해다로와 제가 다 페이지 제가 톡 내셔나 페이지를 계속 다 주셔서 상호당은 인추시야 된 거로와 어디 봐.
So we're still dealing with how to prevent or counteract laziness or procrastination by thinking in those three ways. And Geshe has given a more elaborate explanation on that. So actually stated here that those three things mentioned are already being explained in the context of initial level practice and practitioner, isn't it? We have three types of practitioner: small level or initial level, intermediate scope or the level, and the advanced. So in the context of initial level practice, those things are talked about, right? Impermanence. But everybody intellectually knows, life is impermanent. Well, that's not good enough. We have to think over and again so that otherwise we always grasp at the permanence of life, right? Tomorrow, I'll live forever kind of thing. No, you don't. I get to live there. And so, he didn't say that, but, so we have to think about the impermanence over and again so that, we can, if we have something to do, we want to do it now rather than later, right? Because impermanence means that life could end any time, okay? And so that's already had been, talked about. And then once we die, we said, and reborn in the bad migration is going to be a long time there and suffer too much, right? Then somebody can critically say, why you always talk about being pessimistic, talk about being born the bad migration. There is such thing as a good migration. What's about that? Sure. If we can think in a very simple way, there's a good place to be, there's a bad place to be. But let's be honest with ourselves, What are our chances of being in a good rebirth and bad rebirth? The answer is inside us. Look in, investigate it, right? To be reborn, to have a good rebirth, we have to create good karmas. And to be in a bad migration, bad karmas. So, which one have we created more? Just answer the question for yourself, right? Look at, So based upon that, we can hypothesize as a social scientist that we are more likely to be in the bad migrations if we don't create good karma, if we don't practice now, because that's more likely to happen. That projection is more likely to happen than being in a good state of rebirth. Okay? So that's what we have to think about. And so then we say, why is that? Why we tend to create more negativities rather than the positive ones? Why is that? Well, there are a lot of factors, and part of that is the habit. We have habituated ourselves to with the afflictive emotions. The delusions are our best friends. He didn't say that. That's my third footnote. Okay, so that's our best friends. So delusions make us do the negative things, so because of that familiarity, if you are too much familiarized with the negative karma rather than the positive one, then at the time of the death, which karma is more likely to be activated and happen? The bad one, because the habit wins here, isn't it? So that's one possibility why we could be in the bad migrations. Another thing is, in terms of intensity, the good and the bad karmas we create, the bad karmas are much more strong in our case. Because somehow when we do the bad thing, we do it with all the sincerity. When we do the good one, it's kind of there, something is missing. There's the missing link, It's not completely good in the sense of motivation is good, the action is good, the conclusion is good. That's what we call good, right? All good. But in the case of the good one, something goes wrong. Either the motivation or the action or the conclusion is kind of good, So that's the kind of good karma brings the kind of good result, not the really, bad. With the negative one, motivation is great. The action is great. The conclusion is super duper great. Well, there is the, super lotto right there for the negativity one. I mean, he didn't say that, but, So now you see the picture of, why we are more likely to be in the bad migrations, because the intensity of the negativity is so great. The stronger karma wins at the time of the death, okay, more likely. Let's say, another possibility, both our good and bad karmas are equally strong, equally good. We have equal habit with them. Now what happens? It looks like I'm in that category, right? Well, in that case, the text says, whichever karma you created first, that's going to be activated first. See? So those are the different options, right? So the habit can determine what karma will be activated at the death. In our case, at the moment, it's more likely with the negative one. Intensity of the karma is more likely to play the role. In our case, it's going to be the negativity, unless we change the course of action now. So therefore, there's a more chance for us to be reborn in a bad migration. Sorry to bring the bad news. So we should act accordingly now, so we can change it. Right now, we have the thing to do. And then the third thing we said is we really have to deeply appreciate this human life. This is the best thing we can have in samsara. Okay? And but it's very difficult and rare to find it. So we already talked about this a long time ago, isn't it? In terms of its quality, because this is a fully endowed human form characterized by 18 great qualities, this is very difficult to find. Okay? In terms of quality, it's the best samsaric body we can have. In terms of the causes that we need to create to find it, this cause is not easy to create. So in that sense, it's very rare to find this kind of life again. In terms of the example, from exemplary point of view also, this is very difficult to find. So this is how we really seriously consider this matter so that we can inspire ourselves. It's not tomorrow, later I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it now. The sense of urgency, the sense of enthusiasm, should be cultivated.
我的个咱朝人生的高啊，你特别是呢，你去的高啊，他也我就原不到，是这话，他确实的个这，趁的的，哎，起码比可是电话，比个可是的，高啊，他也不见如果呀，给你比个他把他们先把其他这等着是的，就这个忙不就有人我认识，他趁这个比个。 도움이 제주스로 도움이 주 다세 되는 그 나와지도 해동야서로 에네 계제시아도 어디서 소디 가르세는 제주 뭐 글로벌 속이 나인나네 어디 나인나네 디 동 나인남 디 동시부 냠바 시바당스 어디서 다 동시부서나 나인이나 에네 시마비게 가르사 타바탐지 파쇼 근데 내려다녀 더야 교사고 말아와 시도 동시부를 냠바시그레스 에네 치마야 도모이 동의디 게베스 시와 치마냐 걸 가르선다 뉴모쟁 시시벨 에네 비게 샤와디게 에네 비게 지브르데 동의다 데레 비게 대화용하여 말 어디서 시마 도모이 동의 드마게비 네스톤네 곰라 가바샤데스 어디서 그러다 다디 저항이 해셔봐서 세디 저항을 님보며 세디 저항한테 가르서 이러다 가르사 요도 유노동주를 해보 사데 비게 가르사 남세 방송을 요하였는데 히르드는 그때 가르 되게 소소 안자를 지 깨와는 인세데 엔베 가르사 차게 잠지 키야요 말아와 시다 키야면다 되서 다고 종으로 다당 데려와 어때 세디 가르 제가 디테일 깔리자다 다 니모가 되자 거를 여기 참숨신 사고로 어디 사고인데 인 동시에 냥들이 시마 동요 도마지기다 여기 참숨신은 디자 사드 중에 시베이나 인코 미가 레레데 미가 레다 시망인도 제인도 제나 이 동요 모는 거야 다 쇼자라와 어디데 삼로다니 간지 케빈 케니 비게 개와드베 연대카리 여기 미가와 제가 제주에다가 방면도 없이 내셔는 종가지 의미 어디내가 삼었다네 괜히 삼었다네 가고를 스타칸지 치트릭스로 그래서 저항연발 해봐도 가고 그랬어.
Now we're at the bottom of page 187. We're talking about how to stop or prevent the laziness of being attached to mundane activities, affairs of things, right, of this lifetime. Compared to the spiritual activities and the practice, for practitioners, those mundane activities are of lesser importance, isn't it? Because that's not the most important ones for us. But yet, we are very much attached to this life, and this life matters more in many ways, isn't it? The goals and everything. So if that's what we think is important, then of course we will not find the kind of joyful perseverance required to cultivate path and practice, right? And achieve our spiritual goals. As Geshe explained, that practice doesn't mean necessarily it's going to be easy and smooth going thing. Practice requires a lot of facing challenges and difficulties and sacrifices, right? And not sometimes only this lifetime, but many lifetimes. So when we say engaging in practice, it doesn't mean a smooth sailing necessarily. There will be a lot of ups and downs. Then we think like, well, no, I just want to deal with this life. Yeah? And so there are many things in this life that can distract us. So distractions are really big. Factor here, so there's an X factor that prevents us from cultivating the path, right? Because there's so many things in this life that's so attractive and interesting that captures our attention and takes our effort that we really don't find time to cultivate the joyful perseverance. And so, of course, in our scheme of things, because this life matters more, so what's one of the things? I really want to be rich, That sounds like a great thing to be. And so it requires a lot of effort because you cannot be rich easily. So a lot of time, investment, resources. So let's say you succeed in becoming rich and the richest person in the world. But that's what it said. In the Buddhist literature, the one who is richest is the Vishramana, the wealth deity, right? He's the richest, person. And let's say even if you own that kind of a treasure of the Vishramana thing, but there's a limit. Your life has a limit. One day when you will die, you have to leave everything, like it or not, right? You can't take anything. So becoming rich, does not necessarily make you happy, forever and ever. At the end, you have to leave everything behind. So thinking about that, we should also have a reasonable, right, approach to accumulating the wealth here. And in the process of becoming rich and whatever these other mundane plans we have, we some experience a lot of afflictive emotions, isn't it? Attachment is a big factor. Maybe sometimes hostility and anger, because all of those things. So these things become very rampant, and as a matter of when these afflictive emotions arise, that's a lot of negativities we create. So in the process of becoming rich, we become very deceptive, manipulative, strategic, yagada, all of those things. So those are bad karmas there, and we have to pay for that. And so we have to consider those options as well. So the bottom line is this, as Geshe said, as practitioners, we have to do the cost-benefit analysis here. Okay, here's this life, everything important in this life. Here is the future life, right? All our spiritual things matter. Do the cost-benefit analysis and then see which should I choose, right? And that will help us to develop the joyful perseverance in cultivating the path and the practice.
Because Gaba Chat is a guy in the Taye, Tamju Guy Sherpone, Dungi, Jenny, Naming down, Guso like Gishi gas, that is usually that Tondachi, Guy, Guinness, the country, that country, gas in the pitch of the all cigar, because the Dewa Taye, that country, Dendro, Sanjay Sabatu. In the drop to yak, today, you some what I wish you Madrop Shen is over. And the guy said, Nambanis, Dungin, Gusol, Dungin Baji Yumaki, in the Guevata, that country, Numusho Mambo, Carton Mambo Telene, Gaya, the Joe Cars in the Gagos. We got until. The water is Judelia Magash and Dunga tell ya Guevara of Dressia then, Sugar, the Gawumaris.
So on the top of page 188, we have a stanza quoted from Shantideva's engaging in Bodhisattva deeds. So basically, we ask this question to ourselves. Seriously considered, Dharma is the source of joy and happiness in this life and future lives. Right? From the smallest one, in the sense of like the kind of joy and happiness we have in the good rebirth, all the way to liberation and enlightenment, all of this becomes possible because of Dharma, right? And we should love it, but why don't we love it enough, so to speak? On the other hand, distractions, delusions, afflictive emotions are the real sources of misery and suffering, but we seem to love them more. Why? So we have to ask that question: why why are we in love with the wrong thing? Why we love the causes of suffering more than the source of the joy and happiness? So we will stop there today, and of course we welcome your questions. And as you prepare for that, I already have a few questions here. I'll start with this, and then you can think. Okay. Can tiwa tangbo tanga de tiwa ni sra songa ke. This should is 188. So I have two questions here. Dan ngajo namgyu di orwa ke nyamlen che orwa. So nyamlen de ya je du gu yume khande singwin jin che tu gre sa orwa ke che jegin na orwa ke. First I'll ask the first question followed by the second one. What are some ways we can measure progress in our practice, right? What are some ways we can measure progress in our practice now? Yeah, the social context
Casa Gumda Nimutua, in the Casa, Teta Heat was as your mother. Can so the big Nimu shoot soon to join it. Julum to Yar do that? In it, the Yajido or this. That Julum there do chair in the Nimu show Magina. Any Koyajido Mars. That is 7 days, and the Carsa. Sean courage give us a Kajula magic is on the Carsa. 你们下的么是什么事才对不对？可是俺长的你什么开个头呢？什么你们说的战绩，我的那他妈心里才多。像滚可是多少节目啥？
多少节目？
多少节目？
好了，个预备性不是个。
有这些。
So Geshe was chuckling over all this, because he remember the words of some great Kayuba master here, which I'll translate in a minute. So, some ways to measure our progress in practice is that everything we practice has to counteract our afflictive emotions and make us better human beings, isn't it? If our delusions are on decrease, and in terms of the way we relate to others or behavior is becoming more positive, then these are the indicators that we are succeeding or progressing in practice. If the delusions are not on decrease, on increase, and our behavior is not changing, it's the same or worse, well then it's not working here, isn't it? So as Geshe said, a great Kagyuba Lama by the name of Doji Gyalpo said, he used this example that those who love to recite mantras, right? So you use the mala or the rosary, right, to count the mantras. But you do it for years and so long that, your nails, everything has become kind of exhausted, but your delusions have not become, even less at all. That means your mantra recitation has not worked, isn't it? You have recited hundreds and thousands, millions. Your nails got chopped, whatever, cracked by doing the mala, but your delusions have stayed the same. It's not on the decrease. That means your mantra recitation hasn't been effective practice, So that's what it is. So we have to check with our delusions and behavior, right? Are we doing better? The second one I have, 단단 데 춘주 수마시어 와게 파진 추나 그 춘주지어 와 디단 단단 데 요바게 파라미야라 제나리아 아네 가서 양답에 써봐세죠 와 디니 직바를 왜 사게
디타 그런 누식세지 뭐 영어 직바다 저도 존주 그런다 방어지어 와 수주 존주네 윤다 파디 존주여 와 파라미야라 제데 파바 유령 거들 와 간도 다도 존주 때가 더 레당 유령 거들 와 그 그런 뭐데 직바다 톱지중다 양에도 여러 와
So the second question is the enthusiastic perseverance or joyful perseverance of the six perfections the same as the right effort in the Eightfold Path, right? In the Eightfold Path, there's mention of the right effort. Are they the one and the same thing? And Geshe said that in terms of what it is, the nature, they are the same. But when we talk about enthusiastic perseverance, it's a generic term, Junju in Tibetan. It includes all levels of enthusiastic perseverance, right, from the beginner's level all the way to high. But when we talk about the rightful effort or the right effort in the Eightfold Path, but that is exclusive to the Aryas or the transcendental beings, isn't it? So we are talking about the enthusiastic perseverance in the mind of Aryas or the transcendental beings. But in terms of what, they were the same. Okay, no.
Tiri ngonzo pen tiro kaza nyingje du daga nyingje du shina. Manda nyingje tez minge me peji yuji marwa. Te shina ko nyingje chelo shibu do changshu siba ina la nyingje chenbo yeba jigba ina nyingje 단도 흉세 중세네. 이 가게배 요보 처주 도야 저. 근데 나도 디테지면 돼. 배제 로기 디레도 다들 지도 상호자 정주 독해야 돼. 나사 tombal에 애니 केवा जिदि हिदों जे ngong जेबरे सरे
알아놓어서
다 성엘스 예지 다자도 사지 니시라치다 지자도 사지 유스게 저와
나래
제가 때까지 닝제다 또 효시 좀 주고라
놓어서 할 닝지 시중 저로마
누가
게단들이 제주 잠그 닝지 선배 정주 선배게 축체라
라
제주 잠그 게 단다
지도 다자도 뭐 전주서 맞에 거니
알셈 게메
केवा जिदि हिदोंले जिदि सामो 전주서 시야살이지 티 저 다자도 뭐게 그래서 다 다자도 사지 따라와 다 지디 정말 주장 용자로 오시나 단도 전주서 뭐 있어 봐라 사지야 봐라
So Geshe said, and another example you want to give is when we talk about compassion, right, Yingje. Yes, there's all kinds of levels of compassion, isn't it? Even the compassion of bodhisattvas looks like one, but it isn't. Some bodhisattvas have much greater, compassion in terms of much greater intensity than the others. So all of their compassion is not just one is the same thing. And those who have a greater intensity compassion, so they progress much faster to enlightenment than the others, who have great compassion but not as strong as the other one. And so he gives this kind of a example that it is said that Maitreya actually developed bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, 84,000 eons before Shakyamuni Buddha. So Shakyamuni Buddha was kind of late in that sense, right? Running late to develop bodhicitta. But Shakyamuni Buddha's bodhicitta was much more intense. So therefore, Shakyamuni became Buddha before Maitreya. According to us, like Maitreya is still supposed to be bodhisattva, right? And so that's what it is. So Maitreya went ahead, developed bodhicitta 84,000 eons before Shakyamuni Buddha. So Buddha ran late here. I shouldn't say Buddha ran late. Shakyamuni, not the Shakyamuni Buddha, or Siddhartha maybe, or something in the previous life. But that's what it is. So it's the intensity of the compassion of bodhicitta that matters. Okay.
사토부 셔주심 베줄이요 존이 무엇이 말했어.
No,
어디 야 신나 존이 흉수 또 정말 어디 배시고다 거기는
So if you think that have I kind of detour to some other topic or something, I'm talking about compassion and bodhicitta, and what have they got to do with joyful perseverance we are talking about here? I'm using those as examples, right? So when we talk about joyful perseverance or joyful effort, we all have something, right, at our level. Whereas the bodhisattvas have joyful perseverance, but of a different kind, different intensity. So depending upon, but as a joyful perseverance, our joyful perseverance and the one in the bodhisattvas is, in terms of what is a joyful perseverance, is the same. But then in terms of the quality, intensity is very different, So that's what we're talking about. Okay, now the two questions I have we dealt with. Welcome yours. If not, I have an announcement to make. I have been reminded of, then again, the Sera Shushoskin.
Yes.
As we have announced a couple of times that His Eminence Song Rinpoche will be coming soon near you. That's coming soon here. We know that, so his program might start on September 29th, which is actually the self-initiation of Yamantaka. Those who have done the retreat, everything, right, come, and it doesn't, not relevant to other people. But then his really teaching starts on the September 30th, Saturday onwards for a long time. And so he's giving what we call Mahamudra teaching. Maha means great, Mudra means seal, right? The great seal teaching. It is for new students here, very high level Buddhist teaching. And in order to attain that teaching, Mahamudra, the teaching, there is a prerequisite, right? It's not open to the public like, XYZ can come to that. And so Rinpoche's advice is that, to be able to attain that Mahamudra teaching, you should have received a highest yoga tantric empowerment. We call Mahanuttara Yoga Tantra. Okay? Examples are that you might have received a Guya Samaja empowerment, right? That's highest yoga. So you can attend the teaching. You might have received Heruka Chakra Samvara, right? That's highest yoga you may receive. You may have received a solitary Yamantaka. That's fine. You may have received Kala Chakra, okay? But if you haven't received any highest yoga tantric initiation, the ones we mentioned, then so you don't, you can't come to this part of the teaching. The other teachings you are welcome to, right? For example, the lines of experience, you are welcome to do that, but you cannot attend the Mahamudra teaching. Are we clear with that, right? So please spread the word. So to attend the Mahamudra teaching, you should have received highest yoga tantric initiations such as Guya Samaja, Chakra Samvara, Solitary Yamantaka, and Kala Chakra. Rinpoche di the Chakchen de ya inji minji ge lame ge wan skor song do wa shiwa lang di. Let's do like medicine Buddha mantra for the people who are having a medical training in generics. I want to say that. So we pray for them. Those who are sick or those who are going to go for the treatment and things like that. So we think about them and dedicate this. Om Beshaje, Beshaje, Ma Beshaje, Beshaje, just some of the so Om Beshaje.
Dead up.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vedasara Tamara Tathagata Arahate Samya Sambuddhaya Tayada Om Beshaje, Beshaje, Ma Beshaje, Ranja Samogata So Gewa Deye, Nudoda, Membe Gebom Dojo, Nendoa Jiyama, Deye Sala Sho. So we recite the Manjushri prayer in Tibetan and Songrum, which is a long life in Tibetan, followed by English and Vietnamese. Kange lo de timye jinda nyinda namda rabse ve tinye dunga jishe sije nije toba lewa de kanda sebe zara mare mendo dunga yise rozo kala poje daze yala tuju yande roda jero nyumo nyelo leje jado deze Mare meze dunga nyuwo shinye chunze raje na tenye daje saje lado yende lunzo gyase tuwe kwa juda chunyi gende dalo mese jambe yangla de omara badana di Omaram Bazana de Sende Yuge Kera Vese Dalu Demo Memba Rapse Pada Tenju Shunlu Tok Rojo Bove Nawa Zedo So Rojo Yazu Ujo Bega Te Kesa Bove Judo Memba Temba Zima Ondo Yisho Be Tanye Chogun Chao Page 21. Obeisance to my Guru and Protector Manjushri, who holds at his heart a scriptural text symbolic of us seeing all things as they are, whose intelligence shines forth as the sun, unclouded by delusions or traces of ignorance, who teaches in 60 ways with the loving compassion of Father for his only Son, all creatures caught in the prison of samsara, confused in the darkness of their ignorance, overwhelmed by their suffering. You whose standard nation of Dharma arouses us from the stupor of our delusions and free us from the iron chains of our karma, who wields this sword of wisdom, hewing down suffering wherever sprouts appear, clearing away the darkness of ignorance. You who have been pure from the beginning, who have completed the stages achieving the highest perfection of a bodhisattva, whose princely body is adorned with 112 marks of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri, Om Arabhazanadi, O compassionate one, with the brilliance of your wisdom, illuminate the darkness enclosing my mind, enlighten my intelligence and wisdom, so that I may gain insight into Buddha's words and the texts that explain them. Page 31. Like the sweet perfume of white lotus, born in the ocean of knowledge, nourishing honeybees, the fortunate being, your fame pervades all directions. You are proficient and powerful in upholding the precious doctrine. To you, O Lord Sang Tenzin Wangda, respectfully I pray.
Nhất tâm kính lễ Đức Văn Thù Sư Lợi. Bậc đại trí Ngài điều phục hai chướng ngại, tựa nhật quang lan tỏa khắp mười phương. Bậc thực chứng chân nghĩa màu rốt ráo, từ tim Ngài bát nhã kinh thủ hộ nhiệm màu. Cõi luân hồi chúng sanh thọ nghiệp báo, bị ngăn che bởi phiền não vô minh. Sở hữu 60 pháp âm thủ thắng, cùng đại bi Ngài hóa độ chúng sanh, tựa từ mẫu chăm lo cho quý tử. Tiếng rồng vang Ngài thức tỉnh hữu tình, thoát khỏi vòng luân hồi nghiệp chướng. Gườm trí tuệ Ngài chặt đứt vô minh, tận diệt muôn vàn khổ đau cùng ách nạn. Trừng tử Như Lai tối thắng toàn giác, Ngài an trụ nơi thập địa pháp vân. Báu thân Ngài trang nghiêm thanh tịnh, 112 tứ hảo Như Lai. Đê đầu đảnh lễ đức văn thù sư lợi, cúi xin Ngài tận diệt ám chướng vô minh. Om Arapasanadi. Con khẩn cầu dưới gót sen bậc đại trí, bàn pháp lực diệt phiền não vô minh. Pháp vi diệu cùng muôn vàn luận giải, như diệu hương ngọt ngào từ sen trắng, đản xanh nơi trí thù thắng đại dương. Hàng thiện căn như ông mật thọ nương, hồng danh Ngài khắp mười phương quảng bá. Đấng thiện xảo uy dũng bảo tồn pháp bảo vô giá. Nam mô Lốc Sang Tenzin Quang Đắc. Xin cung kính trì niệm.
Ten